Hello, welcome, welcome. As you enter the room, you'll see a activity for you to take a very brief survey. So you can either use the QR code or type in the address for the survey. And if you can please take it. Introduce to you Robert Madrano. He is the person that will be facilitating this professional development along with Javier, and he'll be introduced in just a second. My name is Catherine Tolliver. I'm from Green Dot Public Schools, and I am a program leader for teacher induction. And so welcome. We are so excited to have you here. This is the first done this before, where we are offering professional development across this county. So we are so thankful. We thank you for your patience. This is the first time we're doing this, so we hope everything goes smoothly. If you notice, you've already been muted, and we want to get started because we have so much information to give you. And I just want to welcome you. And I'd like to introduce to you Robert Madrano. He is a colleague of mine at Green Dot Public Schools. And Robert, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Catherine. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our session on distance learning apps to support student engagement. My name is Robert Madrano. I'm currently a history curriculum specialist at Green Dot Public Schools. And then prior to my current position, I was a middle school history teacher. I'm joined today by my wonderful co-presenter, Javier. Javier, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. So good afternoon, everyone. I hope all of you guys are doing good today. My name is Javier Alvarado. I am a current curriculum specialist out at Green Dot as well, and I was a former history teacher where I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th. So looking forward to being here with you guys today.
All right,
If I could just mention, I'm sorry, Robert, to interrupt. As you come in, can you please type your full first and last name and the district that you are working, so we can kind of keep an attendance and see who's attended this session. Thank you.
All right, so as Javier said, we're excited to have everyone here today and talk about a topic that we're both passionate about, and that is technology in the classroom. And throughout today's session, we definitely encourage you to please use that Zoom chat. We're going to be trying out different apps, and we definitely encourage you to share your experiences and your knowledge with the group also. We also encourage you to take risks. We're going to be showcasing several different apps, and you'll have opportunities to try them out. And so some of them might be new, some of them might be really familiar. We ask that you be as present as possible. You may turn your camera off or keep it on. It's definitely great to see everyone, but ultimately your well-being comes first. And so when life calls, please take care of whatever you need to take care of. And as Catherine said, we're a very unique group. We're coming from all over Southern California. And I think it's great for us to get to know one another. So we're just going to take a minute here. If you could type into the chat to introduce yourself if you haven't already done so. And you could tell us also what you teach and what you're hoping to learn in today's session. So we'll just take just about a minute here. I see the chat going. Yeah, and it's so interesting. We're really coming from all over Southern California, like I'm noticing here. All right, well, again, it's great to see the diversity we have in the room, and I'll move us forward just to kind of tell you a little bit more about today's session. We're going to be showcasing how you can use different technology apps in the classroom to promote student engagement. And the 4 apps we'll be showcasing today are Padlet, Flipgrid, Quizzes, and Nearpod. Javier and I have either used these apps as classroom teachers, or we've supported teachers in our own district with using these apps. And the lens that we've consistently applied to using these different technologies is through these learning and innovation skills that I have posted here in orange. And so throughout today's session, we're going to be making note of how these different apps can support student communication, collaboration, creativity, or critical thinking in the classroom. And I'm going to hand it over to Javier in just a second, but I'm hoping to see, I see that we have about a third of the group responding in the app survey, and I'm curious to see what our percentages are. So I'm not shocked at all. So as you can see, a lot of us have used Padlet, Flipgrid, and Nearpod quite a bit. Quizzes, only 21% of us have. So I definitely encourage you to please share your experiences, what you're finding in the classroom with these apps throughout this session today. And if you haven't had a chance to take that survey, I'll repost it in chat. But I'm definitely going to hand it over to Javier at this point, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about our first app, Padlet.
Thank you, Robert. So we're going to get started with Padlet, and if we go on to the next page, I want to start off with first, like why Padlet can go ahead and be helpful, not only for all you educators, but for students themselves. As we know, students are in different places right now. There's different ways of bringing them and having them collaborate. But where Padlet comes in, and this is where we see like a big difference that we're seeing in classrooms where it's being used, is that it's basically a collaborative tool where like students can share their own perspective and experiences. So not only are they basically having to post on the Padlet and discuss their own ideas, but at the same time, they get the opportunity of collaborating with their peers, with the teacher. It also fosters a student interaction through discussion, feedback, and collaboration. As we know, before we used to have group work, we used to have pair shares where students were communicating and interacting with one another. Now, that space looks different nowadays. So this tool can also go ahead and help in that area where they're basically communicating across lines. And then the last piece where we feel is also a reflection of our society, where we can go ahead and also support them, and that is that it promotes good digital citizenship. As we'll have the opportunity to explore the tool right now in a second, we'll be able to see how it's very similar to some of the other social media outlets that are around, where students can go ahead and comment, they can go ahead and post, they can upload videos, but at the same time, it comes in with your guys's basically opportunities to open up that space to them. Maybe you feel a response is not coming from a positive perspective, it's not coming to support, you guys can always go ahead and delete the comment. But then the whole goal of this is for students to go ahead and be able to start getting used to going through this process themselves. So as we move forward, what is Padlet itself though? And that is where I know all of us are here for today, to know what are the features, what is it that it includes. And like I was saying earlier, it's an online virtual bulletin board where all students post on one common page. It's also a forum for teachers and students to gather and share ideas. So it's not always just an interaction between the teacher and the student, but at the same time between the students themselves, and the features themselves is which I feel is like a big positive in this with this tool, because It includes video recordings, images, document files. You can comment in different ways, and it's all in one platform. So if you want students to go ahead and record themselves, you want them to create a short video, it's all in one platform itself. And then it has advanced features where you can go ahead and change the background of the bulletin board. You can go ahead and be able to save the Padlet at the end, and you can go ahead and turn it into a PDF if you ever want to come back. So these are some of the features, but enough with me going over the what is it. And what we do want to go ahead and do is have you guys experience these tools yourself. So what we're going to go ahead and be doing right now is we're going to go ahead and be posting on the Padlet. We're going to have the opportunity to experience what these tools look like. And the question that we're going to be answering on the Padlet is, what is one app or tool that you have used in distance learning that you would recommend to others? If we go ahead, Robert, you can go ahead and take us to the Padlet itself. I do want to go ahead and quickly just go over how you would basically post if you've never done this before. You basically click anywhere on the board. It's going to ask you for a title, which right now, like I said, for the sake of this section, I went ahead and went with Padlet, wrote a short description of what that was. And then I went ahead and integrated, added an image to my response. But if you go ahead at the very bottom, use any of these images, any of these features, you can go ahead and like take a picture, you can do a recording. Like I said, I'm gonna leave that all up to you, but when you're posting right now, you wanna go ahead and play with it just so that you know how it works. And like I said, the question that we're answering is, what is one app or tool that you have used in distance learning that you would recommend to others? So we're gonna take the next 5 minutes to go ahead and do this. If you wanna go ahead and post, and then we'll go ahead and come back at the end. And like I said, this is going to be also helpful for all of you to go ahead and be able to see what are other teachers, other educators doing across the board. So we'll take 3 more minutes to continue basically writing our recommendations. I see a lot of some familiar ones such as Nearpod, Pear Dig, Jamboard. I see some other one that I haven't seen experience very much, which is Seesaw. And then to take it a next step, if you're already done, and this is totally optional, if you would like to go ahead and like other people's comments, if you would like to go ahead and post a comment on their page, that is absolutely, would be awesome. But like I said, it is something that is optional in case you're not done yet. Screen Catisfy. I see. I never used that one. Interested in trying it out. Edpuzzle. Okay, so we'll take 30 more seconds just to go ahead and finish typing our recommendations. Loom. Interesting.
Robert, moving forward, can we also post the link to whichever app we're trying so anyone that misses that front page can also log in?
Yeah, definitely, Catherine.
Perfect. So I see a lot of, like I said, recommendations from all of you. There's, like I said, some that are familiar that I've experienced, that I've observed. There's other ones that I have not. But like I said, the whole part of this point of this section was I wanted you guys to go ahead and experience what Padlet looks like, how you could go ahead and comment. And moving on to the next slide, how are some ways that I basically experienced Padlet being used? And it could be done in different ways, but the most common ones are for processing and for the applications chunks of your lesson, especially for processing information where instead of, like I said earlier, if before you were having students to do a pair share, you're having to work in groups, they can all come to this one common platform, go ahead and not only give the responses, but they can go ahead and comment on each other's documents. And it all also depends on what's that learning outcome that you are looking for. If, for example, it's the application piece where you want students to create a short video where you want them to go ahead and present certain items for what they learn in class, you can also do that. And then another way that we've seen this being implemented is through getting student feedback on, it could be on a lesson, it can be on a topic, getting them to share their ideas, getting them to share what their interests were, how they perceive a certain topic. And the last piece that I did want to go ahead and just bring up was the student connectedness and community building. If I know that there's teachers, educators from across elementary all the way to high school, if you at times are moving away from the content area, there is an opportunity of asking them questions that can go ahead and get them to go ahead and get to know each other. I got to see a teacher go ahead and post by asking the students to post a movie or a show that they watched during the summer. And basically students were responding and then they were commenting on each other many times, finding common shows that they've been watching. So like I said, these are some of the ways. Of course, there's multiple ways. What we did want to do is just go ahead and present what the tool was, what the platform was for you guys to experience it. And then the way that we're finishing off our sections are in this next slide, where we want to go ahead and get your input on this. If you have already used Padlet in the past, if you could go ahead and just let us know, like how did you use this tool to foster student learning and innovation? If you have never done it before, then this question can go ahead and apply to what you're thinking in regards to your lesson, like how would you be able to use this? And what we're gonna do is Robert is going to go ahead and share the link to the new Padlet. And in this, like I said, in this last Padlet, it's gonna be for each section where we can go ahead and give you guys a space to either one, be able to talk about how you use the tool yourself, to tell us how you're thinking of using it. And then at the end, we're gonna go ahead and save it and be able to offer it to all of you, where you can go ahead and see what everyone was stating. So for this last part, we'll go ahead and take the next 5 minutes. And like I said, we're trying to answer like how may you use this tool to foster innovation and engagement. And just really quick, and apologize for this, if you want to go ahead and click underneath the column for Padlet, just where you go ahead and see the addition sign, and then we'll have, like I said, the 4 different sections throughout the day. So if you want to just click underneath the Padlet column. Sorry about that. So we'll take about 2 more minutes, and then we'll move on to the next two for today. Student work. Take pictures, record, absolutely. A social emotional learning piece. Open-ended questions. Checking for understanding, which is probably the most common way. Group work presentations, absolutely. Ooh, nice. All right, so just keep this Padlet link open. We're going to be coming back to it at the end of each section. Like I said, this is for all of you to go ahead and be able to share. Like I said, not only have you used it before, but then also how you possibly thinking. And at the end, we'll go ahead and give you guys that opportunity to take this piece with you. So from here, I'm gonna pass it on to Robert for this next activity, and then we'll continue going from there.
All right, thanks, Javier. So the next app we wanted to showcase is Flipgrid, and I was revisiting the app survey, and I see that 54% of this group has tried it before. So I definitely encourage you, definitely keep it going in this flex time page here, but share in chat, successes you're having with it, how you're feeling about Flipgrid throughout this segment here. And so in this section, if you've never used it before, or you're still learning about it or looking for new ways, I'm just going to provide some guidance on why a teacher might want to use Flipgrid, what it is, and how it could be used in the classroom, just a few ideas. And I don't know if it's the nature of distance learning, but I at times feel like I'm presenting to an empty room, and maybe that's just me, and maybe I need to reflect more on why that is. But if you're ever feeling that need to like desperately interact with your students during a presentation, Flipgrid might be an app to facilitate that speaking and listening aspect. And so for the 54% of you that have tried it before, I know you know what I'm talking about. It's great to hear students' voice. It's great to listen. It's great to have them engage with one another in a collaborative space. And the medium it's in is in video format. So it's in a format that youth are like really into. They love YouTube, they like video, and they can do some really creative things on there. So speaking to that innovation skill of creativity, there's a lot of like hidden features in this app where they can get extremely creative in their videos. And then like Javier pointed out with Padlet, it's also another opportunity where for students to engage in this digital environment in responsible ways, whether we're talking about like, hey, when you post something, share with care, or when you're talking about other people or to one another, let's talk about being kind online, things like that. And so Flipgrid creates an opportunity for that. And if you haven't played around with it before, the simplest way I can put it is it's a video message board, and they use these different grids which kind of act like a course or like a class where they can discuss different topics. And even if you've used it, if you've ever had a chance, their YouTube page is amazing. They've hired on educators, some really talented people, and instead of me of just like talking through or showing you, this is not an out. They do a good job, and so I cannot compete with their quality. So I'm gonna post in chat like an intro video if you've never seen it before, and even if you've used it before, it points out a couple things, refreshers as well. So if you could take just 2 minutes, I'm going to go on mute. But if you could take 2 minutes to watch that video link I just posted in chat, and I'll post it again. It just introduces what it is a whole lot better than I could, because these people have done a great job. So take just 2 minutes, please. All right, so the video should be concluding at this point. I just want to point out a couple of features that may have come up in that video. And those of you that have used this know what I'm talking about. Is like it's not just a video. You can be so creative with how that video is created. For example, students could add filters, and I have like this pixelated image here. So if they want to protect their privacy, they can pixelate themselves. They can add emoji stickers like on the side or to cover their whole face if they want. They can add text. That's just another feature. And then there's a record screen option, which is basically a screencast option. So they can record their screen while they're showcasing work and provide a voiceover. And if you're new to the app, and I know a lot of you are not, so please continue to share how you're using it. But if you're new to it, I just want to give us an opportunity to try it out because at first it feels really intimidating, but then once you start to play with it, you get a lot more comfortable pretty quickly. And so I'm going to ask that we try it out. And in a moment, I'll post a link to it's like a public Flipgrid page for us, just for this group, where we can post something on Flipgrid itself. And so the question I'll ask you to respond to is, if you had to delete all but 3 apps from your smartphones, which one would you keep and why? And to give you a few options, like if you're not interested in like recording a video on your screen, there's a record screen button. And so I posted a sample where I just Google searched an image and I recorded that image and then I spoke over it. So I didn't even show my face in my actual post. And then if you'll have 5 minutes. So if you want to play around and level up and try those different effects, you could pixelate, you can put screen filters, emoji. It might just be an interesting opportunity for you to try that out as well. So I'm gonna post the link. When you go to it, you'll see a big red record a response button, and then a pop-up is gonna show, and it's gonna ask you to record it, of like to log into Google or your Microsoft account. And then once you do that, you'll have an ability to post. It's just a 30-second recording window, but you can stop that at any point. And if you don't want to actually submit it, you don't have to. You can always delete it before you submit. So I'm gonna stop talking. I just want to let you know that if you're sharing your screen in Zoom, you'll have to stop your camera so you can record in the app. So that's just, it doesn't allow you to do both at the same time. So if you're gonna record, you'll need to stop your Zoom. And then I'm definitely gonna stop talking right now and I'll give you 5 minutes just to play around in the sandbox of Flipgrid. So again, I'll stop talking and give you 5 minutes. All right, so I'll move us forward. Again, I just want, if you hadn't experienced it before, I definitely want to just provide that time. I know that 54% of you have tried it though. So if I'm just going to offer a few examples, but please continue to share in chat or our flex time board how you've used it in the classroom. And I see people posting a lot of similar things to what I'm about to say. So some of this might not be new, but if you had an opportunity, like probably the lowest hanging fruit for how to use this in the classroom would be a discussion. You post a big question and students are talking about it in video format. And you saw on our Flipgrid, like if I click refresh here, you can respond. So like if I wanted to, there's a lot of good ones here, but if I wanted to, I could put a text comment or a video comment. So I don't have to necessarily use video, but we can have a back and forth discussion about something. Formative assessment, at the end of a lesson, it could be like, what did you learn about blank? Or maybe if it's a history class, it's some broader question, and you can use it to assess student learning. I noticed in chat earlier, people were talking about finding different ways to have students communicate. This might be another tool. And I'm not saying in place of writing, but just as another opportunity to share their thinking. And then, of course, as I saw also in our flex time, that's social emotional learning, especially right now in the middle of a pandemic, like checking on students, building those connections, super crucial right now. And language skills, I've seen this with my son who's in elementary. He's in a Spanish class and they're practicing their speaking skills on Flipgrid. It could also be for an English language arts class or even like any other class where there's some sort of academic discourse that you want to have kids practice. And then most recently, I saw an example of a teacher in our district. She was using that screen record function that I saw a few of you try out. And what they were doing is they were recording like their Google Slides, a project they had worked on, and they were reflecting on their work, and then they shared it with their families. So kind of like a very advanced student portfolio is another way I've seen people use Flipgrid. I know some of you have already had the opportunity to post, but if this was your first time or new things are coming to mind, if you could post in our Flex Time Padlet link, and I'll reshare that chat as well. If you could post how you might use Flipgrid to engage students. If you also want to use these 3 or 4 minutes to hop back in Flipgrid, look at some new things, you might use your time in that way. Or if it's the perfect time to grab a quick cup of coffee or check on your family members, please do so. But we're just going to take 3 minutes. If you get a chance, if you could definitely post to our Flex Time to share how you might use Flipgrid or are currently using Flipgrid. But we'll take about 3 minutes and then we'll come back together at, if I can do math right, we'll say 5:12. We'll come back at 5:12. All right, so it is 5:12. If you haven't had a chance, even if you did not posting, definitely take a look at what people are writing. Tons of great ideas, and I'm noticing specific grade levels, but I think they definitely cross across like different grades. Like I definitely can see this even in the middle school, like the reading and other things. So a lot of great ideas, and then feel free to share that resource with others at your district if they're interested in trying out any of these platforms. But I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to hand it over to Javier. And I did notice on our app survey, this one was 20% people have tried it before. But if you haven't had an opportunity, Javier is going to tell you a little bit more about this. So Javier, I'll stop sharing so you could share.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert. So we're going to go ahead in this one. We're going to look at quizzes. I know right now, looking at the survey, I saw that 21% around there of you have tried it. But right now in the Padlet recommendations and in the time right now to look at Flipgrid, I just started noticing people mentioning Kahoot earlier. So quizzes is very similar to Kahoot. And it's basically a gamified app, which we're gonna go ahead and change it up in this piece. We're gonna start off by you experiencing it first. It is one of my favorite apps out there right now, just throwing it out there for the fact that I'm very competitive. I love to go ahead and love trivia, love to go ahead and answer questions. So you'll be able to see be able to access quizzes through your phone. So if you guys can just go ahead, like I said, and the reason we're having you guys use your phone is so that on your phone, you can go ahead and experience the app through a student's perspective. And then on my screen, I will be sharing how you would be seeing it as a teacher. So for right now, we're gonna go ahead, like I said, if you wanna go ahead and just enter that following link and then just write your first name. And this is going to be instructor pace, and I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about that. But in the meantime, I'll give us about 30 seconds just for you to go ahead and use your phone and enter this link, and then we'll go ahead and experience the quizzes ourselves. Perfect. So if by any chance you haven't had the time to type it down, we're gonna go ahead and post it on the chat right now so that you can also have access to the link. But then from here, you're going to start seeing on my screen how you would go ahead and see it from a teacher's perspective. Right away, I can see that there's 16 of you already here on the screen. So as you guys can go ahead and see, I can see the students, not students, but the participants that are coming in. It gives me an idea of their name. I went ahead and put a feature to go ahead and make sure that you go ahead and use your first name without me approving it. But in the future, if you want to go ahead and approve or disapprove students' names, you can go ahead and do this. And I'll just go ahead and wait 30 more seconds for anybody that's still logging in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get the quizzes going. So you'll be able to start seeing it on your screen, how it's gonna start asking you a set of questions. And our topic for today is Disney. So if you are a big Disney fan, this might be your opportunity to go ahead and showcase that. If not, like I said, it's some simple questions around these tools, but I want you guys to also experience what kind of questions and opportunities there is for students to engage in. So I'm about to start it. And we may go ahead and begin now. Ooh, come back. So that was basically like the end of it. But then I did want to go ahead and also the reason I wanted to show it from the perspective of the teacher is that you go ahead and get the immediate data right away. You get to see what are the answers that are being answered correctly, which are the ones that are answered incorrectly. And like I said, these are just some of the basic features of quizzes. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this screen. And like I said, I wanted to make sure that you guys experienced it first before we went over like what are some of the features that are included here. But then as you guys were able to see, it's a game. It's basically a gamified quiz app where very similar to Kahoot, it makes the learning fun. And there's different questions types. That's one modeling that I wanted to do in this type of in this quizzes where you have the opportunity to use multiple choice. We didn't get to see one for check boxes, but you can go ahead and use that feature itself. There's fill in the blanks as you guys were able to experience. And then there's two other options, which it could turn in the form of a poll, one open-ended question. So if the quizzes is more than reviewing or using it as an assessment itself, you can also go ahead and use it for students to go ahead and write, and you go ahead and get to keep that data in one place. The other thing is you can go ahead and do it live or scheduled. Right now, we went through the live version of it, but you could go ahead and schedule it for like a future time and allow students to go ahead and try it on their own. If you're assigning it for homework, for them to go ahead and review some content, that can always be done at different points. And then the one big piece in this part is the immediate data that you go ahead and get. Like I said, depending on the learning outcome that you're looking for, you get to see what are the questions the students are getting correct or incorrect. You can go ahead and get that data from there. And the quiz that you guys just experienced was one that I created, but then through quizzes, there's also pre-created quizzes already available that you can choose from, depending on the grade level, depending on the theme. So these are some of the features, like I said, that we wanted to present. And the reason why we went ahead and wanted to present this one feature, it's just an engaging and fun learning experience to enhance student learning. And that is that one piece. Like I said, I tried this in the past and I love to play games. I love to play trivia. But then when it comes to the sound, the music, and the data, like I said, the goal is to go ahead and enhance the student learning by making it engaging and fun. But then at the same time, if you wanted to use it to develop, review content, literacy skills, you can also go ahead and use it for that purpose. And like I said, you can basically transfer all that data that it comes immediately, as you guys can see in the image below, shows you what are the answers that were answered correctly, which was the ones that were answering correctly. So it offers educators additional data on their students, depending on that learning outcome that you have in mind. And to finish off with how we've seen this being used, we've seen it two ways. One, as I mentioned earlier, to review for an assessment as a study guide to go ahead and break down vocabulary. That was one way where it was fill in the blanks, but instead of being on a piece of paper or on a Google sheet, it was done here, but students had to go ahead and use some of the vocabulary words that the teacher offered. So then they were basically filling in the blank, but then there's additional time given because you can go ahead and control that as well. Or if you want to use it as a formative assessment yourself, you can always go ahead and do that as well. And like I said, everything comes out immediately. You get all the data for how much was the percentage that they got right. So if you wanted to transfer that to your grade book, that also allows it to make it a little bit easier. So other than that, like I said, we wanted to go ahead and continue getting your input on how you could possibly use quizzes. And if we go back to our flex time, we did want to go ahead again, offer these 5 minutes to go ahead and just think about like, how might you use quizzes to engage students? It might be some of the ways that we already thought about, but there might be some ways that those of you, the 21% that have tried to have done it differently, you can share that. That would be a great help to everyone. And if not, maybe you're already thinking of creating something different, a new idea. If you want to also go ahead and share that with us, that would be awesome. That way all of us can go ahead and see and learn about it. So for this part, just like very similar to the other pieces, we'll have 5 minutes to go ahead and add to the flex time. If you want to go ahead and continue experiencing it, you can go ahead and go to quizzes itself and see some of the features there. Or if you need to attend any other matters right now, you can go ahead and do that. But we'll have 5 minutes and then we'll come back 5:30 and I'll go ahead and pass it to Robert for the last feature of the day. Take about 1 more minute. All right, perfect. So we're gonna go ahead. Like I said, the palette will still continue being updated. Feel free to go ahead and continue posting on it. Like I said, it's quizzes is actually one of my favorites. Hopefully you were as excited as I was for this piece. So for the last piece, which is also very engaging and fun, is Nearpod. And I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. I'm gonna pass it to you, Robert. And here it goes.
This all the time. I muted myself. I always do that. Thank you, Javier. So the final app we're going to showcase is Nearpod. And I noticed on our app survey, 56% of the group hadn't tried it before, but I am curious if you could post in chat If you haven't used Nearpod, have you used something else like Pear Deck or Mentimeter? If you could kind of tell me in chat, because I'm curious on very similar apps that do similar things. I'm just pulling up chat right now. There we go. Pear Deck, yeah. So Pear Deck, I'm not trying to start a war. I use Nearpod as a classroom teacher, and I just kind of stuck with it. So I can't speak to any preference of Nearpod or Pear Deck. So if you're interested in Nearpod, it also might be worthwhile to check out Pear Deck too. But I've just kind of used Pear Deck over time, so it's the one that I've become most comfortable with. And again, I don't know if it's just me, but I sometimes experience Zoom fatigue. I have two elementary school children, and they love school online so far, but they also get fatigued from time to time. And then on a daily basis, the picture on the right is my reality. I have 1,000 tabs open, and I can't find things all the time. And I don't know if that's anyone else. And then my son, he's a third grader. Every day he has like 20 tabs open, and part of that is he just doesn't close things, but this is a reality we're constantly dealing with. And those of you that have used Pear Deck or Nearpod, I know you've seen this ability to kind of minimize clicks and kind of keep people all on one screen. So that's going to be like definitely one benefit to using some sort of interactive presentation tool like Nearpod. And as I noticed, people were already posting in flex time, like definitely creates active engagement opportunities. That's another reason why someone might want to go to it from time to time. And the nice thing about these platforms is especially Nearpod, is it plays nice with a lot of existing things. So you can insert a Flipgrid in there. You can post a Nearpod to Google Classroom without having to go to Google Classroom. You can insert videos. So it minimizes this ability to like scramble for digital materials, and it becomes kind of like a one-stop shop when you're doing lessons or pieces of lessons on these platforms. And instead of just talking about these features, I kind of wanted us to just kind of hop into a Nearpod link that I'll show you as I launch it. And then, so we could look at these different features, and I can slow it down and point out some things. And again, I know some of this might be not new to people. So please share in chat like, oh, I've done this and this is how I've improved. Like I've already seen someone posting like touring campuses. Yeah, that's a great idea to visit schools and get kids interested in university. So I'm gonna, as you can see on my screen, I'm gonna launch it right now, this demo. And so I'm clicking on live participation because it's a live lesson. And I tend to just share the link directly because middle school kids, if I just tell them to go to a link, it could be a scramble. So I'm just gonna post the link there in chat, and that tends to make it a lot easier for everyone. So I'm posting the Nearpod link in chat. If you could hop in and then type in your name. One pro tip I got from, and I'm not gonna ask for your last name, but one pro tip I got from an educator recently is they're like, make sure kids put their last name in first, comma, and then their first name. So when you're looking at data reports, it makes it easier. And I'm like, why didn't I ever know that for the 4 years that I've been using Nearpod? So little hacks like that are huge. But I'm only gonna ask you to type in your first name and then click join session. And I can see 9 folks are already in here. So I'll just give you 30 more seconds to get in there. Again, I put the link in chat. And I'm just going to show off a few different Nearpods. I'll continue to present, but you may want to just move to your slide at a certain point. But I'll share my presentation so you could see teacher facing what it would look like. So I'll just wait about 10 more seconds here. Again, if you want to hop in, if you go to the chat, I've posted a link. And then even if I start it, you could still join. So if you go to that link, you could still join after the fact, which is nice. And as you can see, if kids join the class late or they get disconnected, the code's right on the screen too. So I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. The first feature I wanted to point out, and someone already mentioned this, but yeah, definitely like these virtual field trips, right? And if you have a mobile device with like that cardboard feature, you could enter VR, which I'm not going to do here, but you could definitely just use your Chromebook, whatever, Apple device to kind of scan around. This is the Hoover Dam, and it could be an opportunity to like ask kids questions like, what do you notice? What do you wonder about the Hoover Dam? And the cool thing is this is still the Hoover Dam. I've moved it forward, and this is just a different perspective. So a lot of sites, if you just Google in if you type in Egypt, it's going to have multiple sites, multiple pictures of the same site. So it could give people different perspectives on things. And so you should be able to manipulate it on your screen as well. One other feature that is cool about these virtual reality trips is it could take people to places that we may never have an opportunity to see in our lifetime, like the planet Mars, for example. So there's a lot of unique sites. And if you ever were to create a Nearpod, or if you already done it, you just type in terms and you get all sorts of really cool places. The second feature I wanted to point out, and if you used it before, please share in chat how you're using it, because I feel it's like one of the most flexible, because it's called Draw It. It's the Draw It tool. And you can ask kids just to draw something, like draw me a picture or share your thinking. But you can also like insert pictures as backgrounds, and that really adds flexibility. So if you're a history teacher, you can add a political cartoon. If you're ELA or a language teacher and you're trying to do some sort of grammar or something, you could do what I'm doing here. And I'm sharing like a sentence. I have my directions on there already because it's a background picture. And then I added like how to do it. So I might tell kids like, hey, circle the subject here. And so I'm using it as like a formative assessment tool right now. So let's just say I'm on the fly, I'm teaching something, and then I go, oh, go to this Nearpod. I want to see what you know. And you can see on my screen, like I have like, let me hide names. You can see I see everyone's screen, which is cool because I know that this student here circled the correct answer. This student circled the correct answer. I don't have to hop around like a Google slide. I see everything right here. And if I want to showcase someone's work, they're still in progress. Once they submit it, if I want to showcase it, I can share it with the whole class, and it's going to interrupt everyone right now. And I can be like, oh, look at what this student wrote. I want to point out this, this, and this. And so it just creates an opportunity to showcase student work while you're also assessing like what they know on something. So Draw It is a very flexible tool. If you've used Nearpod before and you've done Draw It, share in chat like how else you've used it. Third feature that I kind of want to point out, it's another one that I feel is really flexible, is called web content. So if you're, instead of having kids like go to Google Classroom, click on this link or click on the link that I'm sharing in chat, like we're all in Nearpod. And now I'm telling them like, click on this, it's going to open a new window. I want you to read an article or something. But there's a lot of flexibility here. So I wanted to provide just a couple examples of that flexibility. So another way I might do it is, let's say I'm using an app like ThingLink, and I want kids to take some time and interact with the text that I've created. They can click on different buttons. We're all locked in here, so they're not having to click all over the internet. They're like reading things, they're reading text, they're watching videos, and maybe they're doing something on a notebook or on maybe one of my Google Classroom assignments, and then we'll come back as a class. But what I'm trying to do here is provide us, I want to try to limit distractions while also supporting like, hey, we're all in the same place right now. I'm curious on your thinking. So this is another way to like use this web content tools, linking it to things that are interactive. And then speaking of that, a third way that I've seen web content really leveraged in unique ways is like, let's say I put kids in a breakout room and we're having a conversation. Instead of saying like, go to this link in Google Classroom, what I've done right now is I've put us all into a shared, I can't even say it, Google slide. And so like, let's say I told you ahead of time, you're in group 2. I want you all to share your thinking on this slide. I'm hopping around as a teacher monitoring those breakout rooms, but I'm also looking at this Nearpod screen. I don't have to open a new tab. I'm right here, and feel free to type in if you want, but like I'm here and I could see what people are typing and what their thinking is. And you know, this is like a very simple example, but it just minimizes my own tabs. Now I don't have to have 2 tabs open or more bouncing around in Google Classroom. I can see people's thinking in their various groups right here. So web content has a lot of flexibility. This is, if you haven't had enough game-based learning, this is another feature built into Nearpod, and it's called Time to Climb. And you can see it on my screen. I'm selecting a theme right now, but it's very similar to Quizzes, Kahoot. But again, it's all locked into this platform. So it's like this very intricate web of different ways that I can engage kids. And there's different, this is like a tiered pricing program. So there's like a silver function that allows you like 40 users in a live session. And it's constantly changing. So I don't know all the intricacies, but it is free. And so all the features I'm showing you are part of that free package. And so Time to Climb, I'll just start it now. And if you want to join on in, you can kind of see how it's going to look on my screen, but also your screen. So if you go back to your tab, I see 2 people connecting. And again, I'm hiding names, but if you want to, you could show student names too, but I'm just choosing to hide them for now. And I know we have 25 people in right now, so I'll just wait a few more seconds to join in. And you can see this kind of game-based assessment platform that's part of Nearpod, and this is called Time to Climb. So I'll wait just a few more seconds in case you're interested in joining. All right, I'm gonna move us forward. So this is a Halloween trivia game. It's pretty simple, but I've thrown in some tricky ones, so I'm just warning you. And so you can see what Time to Climb would look like. As you can see, you can hide or show names. Again, just another game-based platform. But the nice thing is, again, it's all integrated in one spot. I haven't had you click anywhere else. We've been kind of locked in. One other thing, and this is, I would say, I'm not going to use the word similar, but it has some like features to like a Padlet. This is called Collaborate Board. And as you can see right away, I get a pop-up. So if you look at my screen, I get a pop-up and says, do you want to approve student comments? So let's say I'm still teaching my kids how to, post things responsibly, digital citizenship, all that stuff. I might say yes, but I trust this group. So I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to approve. And then what you can do is you could just type in your thoughts here. If you want, you can add a picture by clicking on this picture button and searching for a term. So like, let's say I search in like cool, I can save that and then I'll post it. So like, oh, someone took my word. But yeah, if you want to practice, just practice here. But I'm asking you to type one word or image that describes how you're feeling about Nearpod so far. And then if anyone can answer that question in chat for Amy, I only have my kids as a reference point. They're using Seesaw, Google Classroom, believe it or not, Flipgrid, but I have not seen Nearpod used. Has anyone seen that used at the elementary level, particularly K2? If you could type in chat. All right, so as you can see, people can post, and again, I'm not, I'm not moderating comments here. And then just like other tools, I can I can't post replies. So as I'm comparing it to like a Padlet, I can't post replies. So this is not really helping me with like collaboration or even communication is like back and forth, right? It's pretty one-dimensional in that respect, but it's a great opportunity to brainstorm things or share your thinking or checking in. I just wanted to show this one because it's a function that a lot of teachers who are using Nearpod are using. It's called the open-ended question. And in my open-ended question, I allowed for audio comments. So, you know, again, earlier people were trying to think of different ways for students to communicate. And if they didn't want to type or they wanted to express themselves with voice, they could also record via microphone on this. So they can ask audio comments. And so if you just want to test this function now, I just put a generic Nearpod question here, like what most interests you and why. And as comments start to come in, I can do kind of like what I've done before is I can, as a teacher, if you're looking at my screen, I can kind of see like what people are thinking. I can share with the whole class. Again, if I want to hide names, like maybe I'm asking a little bit of a personal question, I can hide names so students are not exposing their identities here. And I'm just trying to gauge where they are. And so that's a pretty common feature that people are using. That is the end of the demo. So if you can close the tab, one thing I wanted to point out as you're looking at my screen is like as you end session, you can actually go back in and get student reports. So I just want to point out this reporting function just because like, let's say you were using it as a formative assessment. So I have a bunch of practice sessions, but with the group that I had of 25, I could look at how many questions were skipped. I'm thinking about my own engagement, right? Like, oh, a lot of students didn't answer this question. And then I can go back and see like responses, like what responses people were making. And this was the pro tip that someone gave me is like, hey, make sure you put their last name first. Because if not, it could be hard to kind of moderate like, well, who said what? And then you can download these as a PDF or Excel file too. So if you need that data, it is definitely there. Again, if you've been using this, feel free to continue in chat how you're using it. A few functions I did not share were the poll. You could use a poll function here. The other thing I did not mention or show you was the multiple choice quiz. So it's a little more, it's not game based, but it's very similar to time to climb. And then with multimedia, there is a videos function. I didn't test it out with everyone, but with the video, you can play a video to the entire group or you can have them play it on their screen. I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that. I've tended to let people default to their own device because of connection issues. So that's how I've usually done the pushing out of the videos. And then if you're a Microsoft school, and even if you're not, you can share these sways, which are a very interactive informational text. That's another content you can share in this platform. And then so many ways to use it. This is just a couple, but I would say in a moment, looking at this flex time, we're probably going to see 1,000 better ideas. But like one way is like this brief activity. So there's this quick launch feature. So let's say I'm in the middle of a lesson and I'm just like, I need to check their thinking real quick, or I need to get a sense of where they are. I could go to this quick launch and I could just ask an open-ended question. And then I share that link in. And so it's just a one-off experience. And then I could do a whole lesson if I wanted to. It could be long, but I could do a whole lesson in this if I wanted to. Someone pointed earlier in flex time, like there is pre-packaged lessons as well that you can take and adapt in the Nearpod ecosystem too. And then I saw it come up in chat, but I'll reiterate, student paced. And that's actually what brought me to Nearpod a long time ago, is like, I wanted students who were absent or needed intervention with something. I wanted them to do something at their own pace. And so there's this asynchronous or student paced option as well, where they take it on their own. They don't need to be in the live lesson, and I still get that reporting. And then finally, as you see me use throughout this demo, like just a formative assessment to check on their thinking and where they are. Lots of different ways to use Nearpod. If you haven't used it before, or even if you use Pear Deck, if you could share in our shared Padlet, like how would you use a tool like this? And again, if it's Pear Deck, just share like, well, I'm using Pear Deck very similarly in this way. So feel free to post that in our flex time. If you want to take this time, we'll just take 4 minutes. If you want to take this time to hop back in and say, I want to look at Nearpod again, use that time. But if you could please at least post one idea before you do so. So we'll come back at 5:54. All right, so I'll bring us all back. And again, I'm seeing a lot of great ideas. And yeah, virtual field trips is so cool, especially when a lot of us are stuck at home for quite a bit. It's cool to kind of get out virtually and see these different places that are in our texts, various texts, right? Um, our hopes for this session, just in closing, was for you to take one kernel from something. So even if you were using these apps already, maybe getting an additional idea from ourselves or the wonderful ideas that our group is posting in our Padlet here. Um, I just want to thank you all for being here the entire time as well. I know you worked an entire day and you stayed with us, so we're so appreciative, and so we definitely want to thank you for that. Before we depart, first thing I want to ask is like, what was your biggest takeaway from this session? And then before we leave, we'll leave a little time for Q&A, and I'll post in a copy of this deck in case you want to share with anyone. But before we get to that, again, if you could just post in chat to everyone, like, what was your biggest takeaway from today's session?
Also, this recording or this session has been recorded, and so we will have that available link, and it will be sent to you via email. So thank you again. We look forward to inviting you to other professional developments in the very near future. And thank you for attending. But yes, Robert and Javier will be available for questions.
Yeah, so it's great to see the comments in chat. Again, we'll stay on for the final 5 minutes here. So if you have any questions, Catherine's gonna, or I myself, if I have the power, yeah. If you want to mute yourself and ask questions or talk to the group, feel free to do so. But thank you again for coming today.
I'm going to continue recording in case someone has those same questions that are just watching.
And then I just pasted the presentation link in case you want that copy as well. All right, thank you again, everyone.
Are there any live questions you want to ask? Those are remaining.